Good morning, all. Good morning, some user. Wow, some user, you're here early. I've got
Good morning.
with me, Pepper. So.
Good morning. All right. So I have a few things I can do because you want to do Watercolor Wednesday. Hi, Maya.
Hi, Pepper. Watercolor Wednesday has hit a snag.
Yeah.
Oh, what happened?
My printer is printing blank sheets of paper. So, as in, I have an inkjet printer, and I use it once every 6 months, whether it needs it or not. But that means that all the ink always dries up in the inkjet printer while it's doing that. So, we may spend some time trying to get my inkjet printer to realize that there's actually ink in there. So it may take a bit.
So this is why I switched over to toner.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. You know what an 11 by 17 laser printer costs?
A lot.
Yeah. More than I got.
You can get a discount one if you get the scanner/printer.
Well, I'd have to get a scanner/printer anyway, but yeah.
But the downside is it's not full color.
Yep.
It's always going to be black and white.
Yep. So, you got it. So, I'm over here printing, trying to get the head alignment to start doing the thing. And knocking stuff over.
Anyways, Bill has off today. So he's going to come in and entertain you.
Let's see here. Maintenance, print head cleaning, proceed.
Well, okay. Well, anyways, I'm going to continue doing what I was saying.
Yeah.
And so
I got the buttons. Messages from Bill.
I got the Kiritaki, the 12 set. The 12 new colors that they produce outside of their normal 36.
Mm-hmm.
They gave them a 48 color set now.
Oh.
Well, they sold the brand new ones.
Look at that.
Yeah. And so they have two types of styles of Japanese skin tone, obviously. The browns that they included are way too red. Technically, they are reds because one's an Indian red and one's a maroon. But they're more of like convenient colors. Like their cherry blossom pink and their lilac pretty much look like, to the untrained eye, actually like literally look just like one lighter than the other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But these are Japanese style watercolors, so these are not made with gum arabic. These are made with fish cartilage.
Arabic. I'm just adding Arabic because it's funny. No real reason.
Yeah. So I had planned on my husband coming in here talking to you while I went upstairs to go boil some water to actually make some watercolor medium.
Yeah.
But then he left.
Left.
Why'd you leave?
Because you were talking about your thing.
No. All right. Well, here. Go ahead.
Yeah, you and I can chat while we wait for printer over here to see if it's,
always get a scanner that's meant for color. If you get any of the cheap ones, they're like, oh, we put a scanner on a printer. Even if it's color, it's like barely 8-bit color. If you get the photo ones, they're 10-bit color or more.
Yeah. Well, and all I need it to do is print. Most of the time, I just need it to print out the line work that I did on my PC so that I can watercolor it. So it doesn't have to be elaborate.
Yeah. Well,
But
that's just a printer, right?
Huh?
That's just a printer.
No, it's a Workforce WF 40 something. So it's the scanner printer combo, but it's an 11x17 scanner printer.
Yeah, but you're just talking about needing a printer to print line work.
All right, folks. Which
Use
one
the
am
bear
I
one.
using? Which one am I using to make watercolor medium in?
The bear one.
The bear one?
Bear
Okay.
one, yeah. It's a bear. No, yeah, he's boiling the water for making watercolor paints. Some user. So Pepper actually makes his own watercolors. He's got all the pieces parts to make the watercolors. So
I just have to clean off my desk because it's been a while since we've done Watercolor Wednesday. And, well, I was looking forward to it.
me too. Are you going to do? Oh, it's just.
Why can I barely hear Guy?
Well, it's because I had to go over there and see whether it was doing what it was supposed to be doing. I do need to turn up the microphone on. Oh, hey.
Doing well, Brent.
I can see that now, and all's working. Let's make sure I can transfer the video over there.
I took off a week's worth of time so that I can enjoy my birthday and Pepper's birthday. So,
Well, that's good.
mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, I have a message for Brent. So I talked to a folklorist, and he basically told me that I can possibly use, instead of Murrow, a thing called an asheray instead. I don't know if you know what it is, but if you look it up and you think that that's what we should use instead of Murrow, I will just have to change the wording.
You saying Asheray? Asheray?
Oh no, it's Gaelic. So hold on.
So nobody knows how to actually say it or spell it.
Oh no, I know how to say it. It's just the spelling does not match the sound. It's ASRAI.
Wow.
The origins is England, specifically Wales. And I think I've looked up all the other stuff that's in that novella, and I think it all has a cross-reference into Wales. So I think I'll be able to use it.
Well, we're here. That's where we are so far.
I don't think it's showing up very well.
It's not showing up very well because there's not much there.
Okay.
It's pretty much just a whole bunch of random dots in a sort of a pattern and no colors at all. So like none of the colors showed up, but you can't even read it. It's not legible anywhere. So we'll see whether that works. I'm cleaning the head again. I agree with Pepper. What we need is a laser printer, but an 11x17. Well, not only that, we had a laser printer, which was a color laser printer, and it was 8.5 by 11, but at least it was a color laser printer. But then it ran out of toner in one of the 4 cartridges, and it wouldn't print anything else ever again until you replaced it. And each cartridge was $80.
Yeah.
And so it was like, I see where this is going. It's going to cost us $80 every other week until all 4 have been changed.
But the problem is you're going to spend more on ink, but more often.
Yeah.
You'll spend less for the ink cartridge, but you'll buy more ink cartridges over the year than you would ever have.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We still have it. It's just that trying to convince my penny pinching wife to purchase an $80 toner cartridge. I mean,
You
it's
should look on Amazon.
It's the same thing at business. It drives me crazy with businesses. I mean, everywhere I work, I'm like, this in the long run is going to save you hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yep.
And yes, you do have to put up 50 grand up front. I know it's rough. It's a hard thing, a pill to swallow, but you have to in bulk invest some of it, and then your savings will be over there, and you're going to spend it. And they're like, no, we don't want to do that. So then they do the monthly thing, which costs them an arm and a leg, and they're like, why are things so expensive? Because you are incapable of processing on how to do your books.
Well, there is one more function that goes in here, which is it's a bad feedback loop.
Mm-hmm.
To her, I don't print ever. So because of that, clearly if we were to spend $80 on a printer cartridge, I'd never use it. Because I don't print, because this is what I have to go through to print every time.
Well, that's another plus.
30 minutes to an hour before I can get this thing to actually just print anything that was legible.
Right.
You know.
That's another plus to toner. Where ink dries out, toner it's a dry product. So
well, that's why we should go to a laser printer.
Right.
But getting 11 by 17 laser printer.
Yeah, they do make them.
Yeah.
We had when I worked at Bach Middle School in Florida. We got like a big. It printed like 24 by 17. I forget. It was like huge, and it was a laser printer. It was by Oki Data. It worked pretty well.
Yeah, everything here is click to see the price.
Right. And you only need a black and white one, so there's some cost savings there. You might find a Brother printer. They're relatively okay. That'll do that.
Yeah, I kind of need a color one though.
Oh, you do need color?
Yeah.
What is this doing? Stop.
Let's see. This one's $8.19. That's expensive, but
Oh, who did I used to go to?
and the cartridges are $92 a piece.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 4 of them, of course.
What is that printer? It's a cheap one, but it's from like a quality company. Doesn't necessarily mean anything when you're buying like the cheapest one. What brand is our printer?
Huh?
What brand is our printer? I'm forgetting.
It's Japanese Ryobi.
Is it Ryobi?
Yeah, it's Ryobi.
Ryobi laser.
It doesn't
Well,
tell me
Ryobi is the name of the tool company.
That's really irritating.
Hold on, I'll be back.
Okay. Like, here's a printer. I asked for large format, and it said, how about this printer? And then it won't tell me what the size is. And every time I do that, I'll end up paying a bunch of money to get an 8.5 by 11 printer.
It's a Ryko printer.
Righto.
Fine. Sorry.
Yeah, Ryko is really great, but like when you get to the cheap end, it almost doesn't matter. So.
Yeah, I'm Ryobi. Isn't that a power tools company?
And I was like, Ryobi, what's...
Hey, okay, first of all, I got the R and the I at least right.
Ah, man. Kiddo.
I don't know if you've ever been like worked at like a print place, but like the gigantic print machines, which are like, 50 feet long.
Yeah.
Those things are Rykos.
Alright.
They're beasts.
Alright. I got everything. Oh, except for one thing. I need to go get that.
There's an HP laser jet, which is 11 by 17, but don't get HP. Just don't do it.
A plotter. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Never buy
Brent's,
HP printers. Never
Brent's,
buy Lexmark printers.
yeah, Brent's sending me a plotter.
Hmm.
I mean, not gonna lie, 36 inches is a good size, you know?
That was another one. When I worked for the school district, they wanted to buy Lexmark, and I was like, "Don't do it," and they would not listen.
Then you
And
bought it and it broke down.
because they wanted to get it because the printers were only like $50 or $80. I'm like, you are going to spend a fortune
Oh
on
yeah.
toner. Like those things have a toner collector at the bottom because they waste so much, and you need to pay to replace those.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh my god, Lexmark is a scam, and HP just doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, these guys all feel like a scam anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we buy a printer and then you have to spend like $300 every other month to refill the ink on it. And if you find somebody who just pours more ink in, they absolutely make sure that, you know, they put little chips in it. So it's like, aha, you didn't get an official one.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all know that the ink is like $5. And so, you know, they want that $390 profit off of each
Right.
one of these. So it's worth it to put a little chip in there. It says, we're not official.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, which is a shame. Hewlett Packard used to be a good company at one point in
Yeah.
the 80s. And it's really sad that that's, you know, where we've ended up with them. Are you freaked out for a reason? What are you doing?
What drives me crazy is like to install their printer, you have to install this like gigabyte sized software package. And it's like, what do you do? Do you not know how to make printers anymore? 1 gigabyte?
Well, that's promising. It's at least readable now,
Yeah.
but there's still no color. All the color ones are out. I'll run one more run on the clean the print heads, and then that should clean it and see if nothing else, I'll just, if this doesn't work for the colors to bring the color back, then I'll run a large format printer. Yeep. Okay. If this comes out relatively clean, this next run, then we should be able to at least print to black and white, which will get me onto the table over there, which is important. Which, anticipating that that's going to happen, I'm going to start looking for all the pieces parts that I need for it.
Yeah. HPs.
Ooh, cold press watercolor paper. All right. Give me a nice big sheet of cold press watercolor paper.
I have wood mounted watercolor paper right here to use for today.
Yarr.
Alright.
I almost wish they'd make one-shot
Is that yours only?
prints.
Yes, this is my watercolor one, not
Okay.
your drink one.
You know, if they did the one-shot print things, you only needed to, you know, it only print like 4 pieces of paper, and then you could throw them away. But they cost $5.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, it would be worth it to me to pay $5 for every print, or for 5 prints or whatever, $1 a print. That'd be worth it because of what I do with them, turns them into these watercolor paintings, which is fine. But the biggest problem that I run into is that that's not what we get. Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on what you're after. I mean, for you, for some people, not necessarily for you, but for some people, it's simply a matter of needing a printer um, that just prints words out, you know. I had these asteroids, and I was like, don't know if I like them that much.
If anyone would like to know what I'm doing, I am mixing up my binder.
I'm telling you, we need to put a camera over here.
Yeah, I know.
Mixing up my binder, bumblebee.
Guy only wishes that he knew the recipe.
I only wish I knew the recipe. Oh, that actually rhymes. All right. It's still over there thinking. I don't know what it's thinking. What are you thinking about?
It's like when someone asked me what Frankenstein's monster term meant.
Hey, man, I know it's Frankenstein. I've seen the movie.
It's Frankenstein? What?
I saw the movie.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. All right. Hey, hey. It's you guys. Hey, hey, it's the monkeys. All right. Binders, binders, and more binders. Pepper's a writer. All right. Check one more time. Let's see what it does.
So here's something for you guys last night that Bill didn't realize he was doing. Right?
Can I realize what he's doing? Am I
The-
being thrown under the bus?
You're not being thrown under the bus. You're being like, I guess,
Thrown
so
on top of the
Flight
bus?
Navigator. The Flight of the Navigator movie has Veronica Cartwright play the mom,
Uh-huh.
right? Well, then he decides to watch Birds, and
Birds.
The Birds
Alfred
from
Hitchcock.
Alfred Hitchcock. Well, Veronica Cartwright, when she was a child actress, played in The Birds.
She was the daughter of the guy that Tippy is seeing.
No, his sister.
Is it his sister?
Yeah, I was just
Oh.
telling you about a dark fan theory. That's all.
Oh, okay. His sister.
So we unintentionally watched two movies with Veronica Cartwright in it, and he didn't even realize both of them had her in it.
That was a pretty cool connection.
All right, sending to printer.
Did your comic get accepted by Ben?
He said he would tell me if something opened up on the calendar.
Okay.
Which I assume is a positive thing. I don't know.
I feel like it would be better if we got you like a little like miniature blender. You could just throw it in there and although probably put too much air in it.
Yeah.
This is aggravating. I'm going back and forth in here. What are you doing?
Huh? I'm doing nothing.
No.
I'm being happy.
Printer.
You see nothing?
Printer. What
You
is
see
the printer
nothing?
doing?
You only see air. Oh, dear brother.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Oh, dang it. I got a whole bunch of the binder like stuck to the sides. I've never used this jar for this type of thing, by the way, folks.
Yeah. All right. That doesn't look bad at all. I feel like that's not a horrible.
All right, so what am I learning today, folks? Well, for starters, this is not a very good jar to do what I'm doing right now in. So do not shake it. Don't shake it real good. It is not a Polaroid picture.
Polaroid. Do the Polaroid.
Shake it like a Polaroid picture. Yeah.
Right? I sing the song, man. Shake, 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 sinner, shake your body now. All right. I think this is at least suitable to start. Not 100% sure. Okay. It's not a cell, so we'll pull that cell work thing out. Clean my surface here. George is watching with great fascination. He's like, what are you doing? What did the green thing do wrong? We need to be a little harsher here.
11 by 17 is hard to come by. It would
really
seem for
is.
laser printers.
I also feel like they use the word large format as well.
Mm-hmm.
To indicate But I mean, everything I have is weirdly sized. The thing I just printed on was 9 by 12. The page that I just did, which would never fit in anything, you know?
Right.
That's what he said.
Did you just, that's what he said in my
Ow!
thing? Proud of you, Pepper. Okay, you can hear me just fine over here, yeah?
Yep.
Sweet. Of course, I have a microphone mounted right above this camera piece right here. And so, Pepper's a ninja.
I am highly concentrated, so if I don't respond, I'm sorry.
It's all right. Nobody's asking you to respond. I am still setting up.
You're highly concentrated. I'll have to thin you out.
Yeah, he'll need to be thinned out.
That will be at the bike place or later today. When you were pulling me away from the mountain bike scooter combo that's electric.
Your midlife crisis toy? What?
Yeah, my midlife crisis toy. Yes, dear brother.
What have you done? Nothing. Nothing. You only see air. Don't be silly. I love you very much. I guess I shouldn't touch.
You know, I worked really hard to keep you off of that zone, and you're working really hard to stand on a thing that does not support a cat. I'm just saying. He's really, like, completely and totally flummoxed at this point in time. I've been pulling out tools. I've been moving things around. He doesn't know what to do with any of this stuff.
Did you pull up the stream on your phone?
No, I am setting up a reel for Facebook because I may as well.
By the time this page is done, yep, I'm going to do it traditionally. By the time this page is done, it will have welled up quite a bit because watercolors, of course, are that way. So I'm really securing it because it's going to start to distort.
Yeah, Brent, I'm home all the time.
The what?
Yes, if I work remotely 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have my phone right here with our show brought up, so I can read what's said in the comments. Just they're lagged. So
You have to be careful where you look. Some places are good about remote work. Some places are like, we went remote, but we don't really like remote, so we make our employees' lives a living hell.
Right.
So,
It's
be careful
the
with
we
that.
don't trust you to do your job, so we have to
Right.
scare you all day long.
I've heard nightmare stories like some places like have to have their cameras on all the time. So
Oh, that'd be horrible.
I don't play that game.
All right.
So I always like asking my interviews. So like, what methodologies do you use to achieve your time goals and with your team? You know,
And if they
like
start well, we leave your
skirt
camera on all the time.
skirt around the like, how do you track your employees' performance?
Right.
Because if the answer is we watch you like a hawk, then no.
Right. So much no.
That's the problem, especially if you're an ADD person and like some days your executive function just is like, no, I'm sorry. No matter how badly you want to do this thing, you're not going to do it. Like I need to have the ability to like have those days and have my hyper focusing days where I just like knock everything out, you know?
Yeah.
All right. I think I mixed everything up. Okay.
Okay, I'll be right back. I got to go downstairs, grab the wicker basket so I can get my paints. I'll be right back.
We need to get you a mini blender. Well, when next time we're at Target and we're near the mini Cuisinarts.
Well, I'm just making sure I don't have anything like stored inside of it. I don't want that. I don't need this to mold because that'll be bad.
I'll be right back. I'm right hearing work sounds, and while I'm trying my best to ignore it because I'm off, I need to go look.
Say it. You said you weren't going to work today. Watch, it be nothing, and they don't even need you for it.
Who doesn't need you? We need you.
You may need me, but his job doesn't need him today.
No.
Exactly. It's Jason, not you. Let them deal with it. Workaholic. Yeah, exactly. No. So, alright, so now, folks, if you see this, so what I have to do now for the binder is I have to get all of this white stuff right here. This is all like air bubbles and stuff, so I have to let that like kind of mellow out, and then I'll have, once that's all done, we'll have binder. But until then, I have to go put this back upstairs into the fridge.
Until next time.
Yep. Exactly. And then next Watercolor Wednesday, guess what's going to happen, folks? Yes, that's it. I'm going to be making watercolors.
Okay. My watercolor set was not, in fact, in my wicker basket. I did not take it to the convention. So now the next question is, where did I use it last? I'll be right back. More after this.
That's the goal of making watercolors, although apparently we have to wait for the foam to go away, so. Don't ask me, I just work here. Because Linux servers are the best.
All right. If you say so.
Not necessarily, Brent. It just depends what direction you want to go in. If you want to remain in the corporate enterprise world, Windows. If you go into like startups, it's all Linux everywhere. Or if you go into any like heavy tech industry, like Facebook, Google, whatever, it's all Linux. Windows is like your business corporate enterprise, like healthcare, anything where it's like it's not tech. Like they didn't know they couldn't use Windows. Yeah. I don't know why they roasted you. Technically, Synology is running Linux under the hood. I mean, technically, you could do it yourself, but at the same time, it's like, do you want to spend that kind of time investment? And it's like sometimes you just want your stuff at home to work.
Exactly, bro. I just wanted to
But-
be at home and working.
That being said, I will not have a Synology NAS. I do manage my own NAS, but that's because I use ZFS and I have 2 separate towers of hard drives that I need to manage and other stuff. But it's relatively hands off, so let's let it go. I need to update it though.
Way too many jars now on my plate.
Right, that's a good one. TrueNAS.
Okay.
Once I'm done with mine, updating mine, I should have like 72 terabytes. And then I'm updating.
Terabytes?
Yep, and I'm updating my entire Plex library and getting all the 4K versions of anything I can. I also have to update my Blu-ray player because I got the 4K UHD version of The Martian, and I was like, okay, I'm going to rip this and put it on my Plex. But my Blu-ray player, the one that I just got, doesn't read the UHD kind, and I'm like, I just got it, but I didn't think that there were 2 different kinds.
Type 1 and Type 2 Blu-ray.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, what?
I think it's a dual layer, probably, and so you need to have a different Blu-ray reader to read the different layers.
Yeah,
Nice.
I mean, that makes sense, but still,
Mm-hmm.
it does sort of feel like a Type 1 and Type 2 Blu-ray player.
I don't even know if it'll be 72 when it's done. What is it? 4,
Boy, I am
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 24.
super disrupted. I'm going to end up spending Watercolor Wednesday looking for my watercolor brushes and stuff.
I'm already starting.
Right? Huh. I don't know where my watercolor stuff went.
Further proof why we need to have Watercolor Wednesday more often.
We
No,
totally
when it's
do.
fully built out, I will have 336 terabytes. No. Sorry. That's wrong. I have 24 bays, but only those 4 of them will be 20 segments times 18, 360 terabytes. I'm starting out with 72 because I'm only buying 8 18s and then 2 of those. Okay, so my math is still wrong. So 4. So 18 times 18, 324 terabytes.
This is what I do.
Because I'm going to have ZFS. It's basically going to be RAID 6, so there's going to be 2 parity drives, and there's going to be 4 ZFS pools. And I'm starting out with 1 pool, and I'm going to add pools as I go along, so I don't need to buy all 24 hard drives. I can just buy 8, and then another 8, and then another 8. Or no, 3 pools. There's a lot of math there. It'll be around 300.
Oh, dear brother.
When done. Right, yeah, now it's all SSDs. But unfortunately, SSDs are not to the size equivalency or price equivalency yet. They're on the horizon. I saw there's a 200 terabyte SSD out there, but it's like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah, there comes a sort of a point of attrition where you're like, yeah, it's not quite a good thing.
Right. Well, if you remember the cost of the original hard drives way back in the day, they were thousands and thousands of thousands of dollars too.
Well, and that's why you get to the point where you're like, well, maybe I won't be buying this, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
But over time, they get cheaper.
I just find it funny. I had a college roommate that was like, I'm going to build my own computer because it's so much cheaper. He spent $5,000 building his computer. And I basically was like, okay, well, I'm glad that you got your own computer and everything, but where's rent?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but think of the money he saved.
He didn't save anything.
No. Think of the money he saved by not paying rent.
True, very true. I had to pay his share that time.
I think if you're going to use it, then it's worth it. If you're not going to use it, then what are you doing?
Yeah, I moved to, I think it's a 150 gig SSD on here because everybody was saying the reason that your computer is so slow. And I'm like,
spinning rust.
Yeah. And I swapped it out, and I don't regret getting it. I just don't feel like I targeted my money properly. Because, sure, now Windows loads like that. That's awesome. But I still have problems with slowdowns in all the areas that it ultimately required me to upgrade to Windows 11 to get rid of those problems. So it was a Windows issue of some sort. So I of course just upgraded to Windows 11 because it offered it to me for free. So I did. And when I did, all of my slowdown problems went away. So it was definitely a Windows issue. And that's why I get kind of frustrated with that, because I remember we had a number of discussions, and I was like, everybody was saying, get an SSD guy that'll solve all your and it didn't solve anything. And I spent, $250, and nothing was solved. And so then I ended up having to justify that one to Mariah. Okay, so wait a minute, you just spent $250 and it didn't fix the problem? We're going to be really tight for 3 weeks and you didn't fix the problem, So that was an issue.
I think it's worth every year you back everything up, you completely format your system, reinstall Windows, reconfigure it, reinstall your software, because it doesn't matter. It could be Windows, it could be Mac OS, it could be Linux. Just cruft builds up in the system, and there's some preference somewhere that got set one way but never got set back upon
Right.
updates, and it just mucks everything up. And unless you just do that, you don't get rid of that stuff.
And you're not wrong. I actually, that's definitely a true thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the of course the biggest problem that I run into on that one is, well, actually I don't really run into any problem at this point. Because really everything is on cloud drive now. Everything's out on my cloud drives. There isn't anything. If my entire PC just decided to jump off a cliff right now, it would be a minor inconvenience for me.
Just be
I would
careful
lose
with
this picture I'm working on right now, and that's it. Because it's sitting on the desktop until it's done. And then once it's done, I'll file it to its correct location on the cloud drive.
just be careful with like Microsoft and Google. Like, I didn't realize it, but the user agreement for Google, at least for non paying customers, is they own all the content on their systems. So when I wrote the script for like Kiki Poppy in Google Docs, technically they own that.
Right.
Right now, as far as I'm aware, they've never
Cashed in their chips on that one.
cashed in their chips on it, right? But it's still kind of iffy, and like Microsoft probably has something very similar because they need to protect their systems, so they have to take ownership of anything in them.
Right. I'll bet you that is unfortunately probably a side effect of you were hosting this person who did a bad thing and therefore you're responsible.
Right.
Suit things that happened in the late 90s, early 2000s where, child abuse was happening on the internet and they wanted to blame somebody. So they blamed, Tinder, or they blamed whatever. What is that? Not Imgur or whatever. They blamed the web hosting for posting CP.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality, of course, is that there's nothing you can do about that. They just found a new and better way to hide it, and passed out all the whatever password keys to all their buddies, and everybody could still get to it. That's nice. I like that.
Not done yet, but now I have to wait for it to dry.
We don't really know they're not cashing their chips in because they could be like, "Oh, you've made it big. Why don't you sign a contract with us for Google Apps?
Right.
Technically we own it, so this would be just a small price to pay."
Right.
Or Microsoft would be, "Why don't you run Windows at your business?" I mean, technically we do own all that content.
Right.
So they cash it in just a little bit.
Most software has a limited amount of activations. Most of the stuff that I run now is now web-based, including Clip Studio, sadly, which is actually one of the gripes that a lot of people are having right now with Clip Studio, because that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So
Free and open source. It's the way.
I mean, I totally agree. No, I didn't. I bought the direct upgrade. So I upgraded to 2.0. The problem is there is clearly something on it because it's broken right now. And every time I load Clip Studio on my Surface, it says, "Hey, you can't do that. We'll have to deactivate your other one. You can only do this a number of times." And so I say yes, and it deactivates the other one, which never deactivates the other one because in my license agreement says I can have it on 2 PCs, which is why I upgraded to the permanent license, was because I need it on this machine and I need it on my Surface because I draw all the time. I head up to your place and Pepper and I can sit there and draw because I have it on my Surface and we can still do the work. But so that was an important thing. But clearly, there is some function that says that doesn't that. And as somebody else pointed out, it's in the user agreement there too. Something about, we have the right to change the terms of the agreement or something. I can't remember what it was, but somebody else in our quack group tripped over that. Good morning, Can. Tripped over something like that. And I want to say it's not Kat, but it's somebody who is with us for small amounts of time every so often, but is more, one of the people we actually physically know and have met in person. But there was something in the license agreement that was like tripping people up. And they were like, no, wait a minute, because it does look a little like you buy this software and you own it in perpetuity unless we change the rules, at which time you don't own it in perpetuity anymore.
I think I remember what you're talking about.
Yeah, there's something in there. And it's clear that their licensing server, which they say is broken right now, so don't worry about these error messages it's throwing until they fix it. Okay, but that means that they've set it up so that it can tell when you're running software on two different, when you've licensed, not running, licensed, because Clip was closed on this machine when it brought that error message up on mine, on the Surface. So it's not running two instances. It was just having two instances existing licensed. So anyway, you never know. But it's the same thing with any software company. They've figured out how to make money, which I get. I mean, like legitimately, I don't know how else to make it work either, thinking about it from the 10,000 foot view, right? I make Bill's number one app that he ever uses .exe, right? It's like the most important thing Bill has ever needed. So Bill buys it for $60. So do all the other Bills out there. They buy it for $60. Great. I've made $1 million. Now you're never going to pay for it again. So unless I put out Bill's even more awesome thing that he needs .exe, and hopefully keep one step up on what you're doing, then I've got $1 million to support my entire company of 50,000 employees for, that'll last like what, 2 months? And then I'm out of money, So I get it. Subscription services are they kind of have to exist, because if you've got 50,000 users and each one of them is paying $10 a month, then your bills are paid, for a big company like Microsoft, So I understand. It does make sense. It's nickel and diming me to death. You know what I mean? Like we don't even remember what we're paying subscriptions to, and we don't find out until we're overdrawn. And then we have to go through and kill a whole bunch of stuff that didn't cost $2. It cost $52 because of the overdraft fees. You know what I mean? Like now all of a sudden, and of course, to Microsoft at all, it doesn't matter. That's not a problem. That's not their issue.
That's why I'm looking to update my NAS, because I'm just tired of like, I want to see this movie. Well, it's on that streaming service. Well, I want to see that movie. Well, it's on that other streaming service. Now it's like I'm not paying for 50 streaming services. It's
right. I would
cable
pay for
is much
one.
easier than this.
Right. I'd pay for one, and it's it's so funny because we were talking about that in the 80s and 90s. We're like, why am I paying for NBA? Why am I paying for the NFL? And I'm still, and this still makes me so mad. To this day, we still have like a $5 or $6 a month service fee for sports.
Right. I hate that.
I'm a geek. I don't watch sports. I mean, I'm like a classic nerd. I don't watch sports at all. I couldn't care less. I know we live in Bronco country. I understand that. Get out of the toilet, George. Thank you. I don't know what his problem is, but now he's trying to lift the lid on the toilet so he can get into the toilet. But yeah, I mean, and so we wanted this. somewhere along the line, this is exactly what we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Except this isn't the way we wanted it. We
Right.
wanted, cable TV to charge us for a channel that we had like
Mhm.
50 cents. And then you picked the channels you wanted.
Well, we had it for a short period, like when there was only the one streaming service, and it had everything.
Yep.
And during that time, like torrenting and digital piracy of movie and
Mhm.
intellectual property
Totally
and stuff
almost
like that
disappeared.
dropped down because it's like we finally had the thing we want. It was only $10 a month.
Yeah.
We got everything we wanted. We could dump cable, and now all the producers are like, "Hey, we want a slice of that pie."
Yep.
So now it's $10 a month for 50 different services, and it's honestly cheaper for cable again.
Yep.
And just better to pirate it,
Yeah.
or at
And
least
that's
buy the thing and then transcode it.
right. Right. I mean, that's just an irritating part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually why I've been slowly saving every Star Trek series on my 6 terabyte hard drive.
Mm-hmm.
It started with, because I don't care what the quality is, I just need to see the show for
Mm-hmm.
me. So the old ones that I transcoded a decade ago that are still kind of pretty much just at 640 by 480, maybe slightly above 800 by 600, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
Those are still fine because they're just as good as TV. Enterprise I have, it's spotty. My Enterprise is really weird. Like I've got a whole bunch of random ones. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, so I don't know. It's frustrating. It's just very frustrating to me
Mm-hmm.
because it's like this has been an ongoing thing.
And now they're doing the stupid thing where it's like, oh yeah, we've taken this old series, we remastered it, and we made it in 4K, but you can only get it on streaming. You can't buy it on Blu-ray. So
Right.
even if you wanted to buy it, no. And it's like, and you could pay for the streaming service, but we only have the license for so long, and then it's going to go to some other streaming service.
Right. Then you have to pay for it there.
Yeah.
So, at least there is one thing I've got to say. At least Paramount has managed to hold on to the TV series. I have all the movies, so the movies keep wandering around because they actually, and I do know this one from the 80s, the movies division and the TV division were two different divisions.
Mm-hmm.
So the movies were made under a different auspice. That's why you had CBS that was making one side, the TV series, and then you had Paramount making the movies.
Mm-hmm.
So in theory, Paramount, which is CBS All Access, should have all of them, but they don't. And that's because of old licensing agreements from the 80s and the 90s.
Right.
And I get it. It's also why they're distinctly different with the new Star Treks.
Mm-hmm.
The whole Kelvin timeline and bringing in J.J. Abrams, who was a Star Wars fan and not a Star Trek fan, and it's obvious and clear. Because the first one's okay, but it's a romp.
Can I turn on a hot blower?
Yeah. Hot blower. So I think all of my watercolor stuff is in the exact same place because I can find neither my tin with all of my paints in it, nor can I find my puck, which has the water reservoir with the brushes that sit to the side of it. I can find neither of them. Yeah, I'm about to say, you and I are not going to see eye to eye if you like that middle one. I don't even want to talk about that middle one. Mm-mm. And actually, I didn't mind Star Trek 2009. That was actually pretty decent. I don't really like the Enterprise that they came up with. The warp missiles are way too close together, and that's kind of weird. But, it's okay. It's survivable. I like the Kelvin. That was pretty cool. A lot of the, random ships that were at Space Dock were cool. I dug that. And then I really liked the last one, Beyond, But the reason was, of course, because Simon Pegg pretty much wrote that thing. Yeah. That's my biggest problem with it. Is
I
that
think-
at the time Bob Orsi was out on the frickin' forums with us saying, "We promise it's not Khan."
Right.
And then it turned out to be Khan. And I'm like, really?
Mm-hmm.
You might as well just owned up to it back then. And then maybe we would have told you back then that was a big frickin' error. And you probably should make it Gary Mitchell. And we could have given you something you could have just changed a bunch of dialogue here and there and reshoot one scene or two. And poof, you wouldn't have half the hate that movie gets. Oh, you've never even seen Star Trek? Sorry, some user.
Yeah, it's funny. It's I I would say I agree slightly that the concept of when you're making a movie or any IP that's has a cult following, that maybe it's prudent and not necessarily to listen to the fan base, to let your creativity do its thing and see the results.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, every time I've ever seen the development of a project where they actually did listen to the fan base, it's always turned out amazing. I've never seen that flop as of yet, where it's like they listened to the fan base and it was horrible. Yeah.
Right.
I've not seen that yet. So maybe people should listen to the fan base. I'm just saying.
Right. Uh-oh. Brent's trying to kidnap some user and force him to watch Star Trek. So, yeah,
I was
Harry
telling
Mudd,
someone.
I don't know if I would have gone for Benderdoodle Cumberbean being Harry Mudd. I think that'd be funny, but probably not what it really is.
He wasn't really a good Khan either, so what's your point?
Right? You're not wrong.
He can't say the word penguin.
That's interesting. And then there was a thing where you couldn't say the word penguin.
No, he was in an interview and he actually, like, he even owned up to it. Like, he's like, I can't say the word penguin. And
Always
he
fair.
pronounced it Pegwin. Or something like that. Like, he had to, like, really strain, like, the way his vocals were in order to get the word penguin out.
It is kind of weird. Very strange. Hi, George. Yeah, so some user, it's actually totally fine. We don't actually, I mean, we tease that we shame, but we don't really shame. it's not really worth it. It's not a positive thing. So anyway, yeah, the thing about Star Trek. Wow, this is like weird code that I'm making here all of a sudden. The thing about Star Trek that's kind of cool is that there's a lot of it out there. So if you don't like certain aspects, you just don't watch those episodes anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I personally really hated the Xindi arc from Enterprise. Almost all of third season is just non grata to me. I don't even watch it. With a handful of exceptions, I really liked E2. I liked Twilight. Both of those were really good episodes. And then Sim was also a really good episode as well. And those came from season 3. So you take those 3 out and the rest of it's junk as far as I'm concerned. It's like I don't even watch them. So I'm building like my own personal library where I've been pulling episodes that I like, I can't deal with this one. Out. So I don't like this one. And so like there's a few of them. But then the problem, of course, is that later on, they become somewhat of some kind of almost like it becomes a Zeitgeist, like Vox Sola. Vox Sola is like now becoming the new Spock's brain as far as the Trekkies are concerned. That's the one where Beverly Crusher has sex with a ghost. And so it's becoming an ongoing, like now it's a thing. Now everybody, now, so it's like, now I kind of want to keep that episode, even though before I had ejected it. But now I kind of want to keep that episode because now it's kind of funny in and of itself. It's kind of like Spock's brain didn't get deleted from my set of TOS episodes because of the same reason. Everybody talks about Spock's brain now as the worst episode of the original series. And so like, and then I'll watch it and I'm like, there's actually some redeemable pieces of this episode. Same thing I'm finding with Vox Sola. Or Threshold from Voyager, which is that episode where everybody turns it, where Janeway and Paris turn into lizards and have babies. It's like that one's a stupid one too. Like DS9's that
one that
though.
Bill just skipped over. I don't remember watching it with you.
Yeah, when I watch them too, I'm like, oh, this is a good one. This is a good one. It's like, no, I just don't want to listen to this one today. Sorry, skip.
Yeah. With Mariah and I have been rewatching TNG in order and like correctly and following all of the things. And I did skip Conspiracy because of the infamous scene where they blow up Remick, and the little creature comes out of his chest.
Yeah.
Because that was just too gory for her, which is funny because we're talking about 1987 television, except that my mom happened to be watching with me that episode when it aired first time. And she's like, she watched that and she's like, wow, that was pretty over the top gory.
Right.
That makes sense because all the censors were on strike. And I was like, oh, that's how they did it. But the censors had gone on strike, so nobody was blocking them. So
talk about they leave a thread there that never gets resolved.
And this is how things get misquoted, some user. This is how politics begins. I'm sorry, what did you say, Bill?
I said they leave like this hanging thread there that never gets resolved ever.
Right.
Because they're like, at the end, they're like, and the signal went out. And then they show like the signal. Boop, 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 boop.
Right.
And it's like, who got informed? We'll never know. It's never resolved.
Right. We're not going to talk about that. We just won't mention that if that's okay with you.
Right. I want them to bring that up in Lower Decks.
With what's his name that thinks everything's a conspiracy. I love that guy. Oh man. Because that's just so like straight on exactly the way it is. It's
right.
So funny. I'm like, yeah. That's often the way I feel about a lot of people who do conspiracy theories. I'm like, So
I'm sorry, no matter what age we're going to be in, there will always be conspiracy theory people.
Yeah, there will.
Hey, some conspiracies are true. They did happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
However, I spend an inordinate amount of time defending conspiracies that just don't even make sense. Alex Jones, yes. Alex Jones is notorious for some of his weirder and more outlandish conspiracies.
Sex changing frogs.
Yeah. I don't know how to deal with that sometimes.
Which that one was actually true. It's just he was being bombastic about it to get attention for it.
Which was what?
He was being bombastic about it to get attention for it.
Right, but what was true about it? I missed that part.
Oh, so basically the water had been polluted with atrazine and various other chemicals, which were causing the frogs, which are famously hermaphroditic, they can change their sex. So it was making more of the frogs basically unable to populate, killing off the frog population. So he took that to an extreme to get attention because no one was paying attention to it. And so he said, "Let's turn the frogs gay." And so that was the point of that.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's, I think the biggest problem is that he didn't like, I don't know. The problem is that it's fear mongering. Some of this stuff doesn't need to be fear mongered.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just need to know that it exists, work on it, and fix the problem. It doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
we don't need to be, oh God, the world's coming to an end. You know, we don't need that. It doesn't need to happen. And that's part of my aggravation with this whole thing is that it's like,
It's certainly worth criticization. You know,
Yeah.
I think when it comes to anything like, you know, whether it's ecological disaster or global warming or whatever, it's worth all of the approaches, and then you kind of just see what works. You
Yeah.
know, I just hate when it's like it's just drum beating on you, and it's like, okay, it's enough, back down. I'm, you know, like a lot of the stuff, like we were talking about, like the woke stuff and like the meaning of woke and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I hate
Hi, Cat.
quote unquote woke movies because it's like a lot of woke movies to me when they under the category of woke, it's they're beating this drum, and it's like they're literally uh, patronizing the viewer, especially when the viewer's already on that side. It's like, I didn't come here to be lectured. You're preaching to the choir. I wanted a movie. I wanted to be entertained, but instead I'm being lectured, and now I don't like it.
Right.
That's
It's
what
I'm
like
in this
it's like
lecture and I don't like it.
you made a movie to lecture one segment of the population, and you didn't inform me. And now I watched it, and now I think it's a hot piece of garbage, and I'm gonna go away.
Well, it's kind of like the romantic. It was supposed to be like the very first rom com for a gay male couple that was like in theaters. The movie Bros.
Yep.
The worst reviewers were the people of the LGBTQ.
Well, that's the other thing too. When they go woke, half the time they do it wrong. It's
Right.
like someone who's not gay makes a gay movie, and they think, "Oh, this is what gay people are like," so we're going to put these stereotypical gay people in it, and it's like it's even worse.
Right.
You're trying
You
to make a
didn't
point
help
while
it.
undercutting yourself.
Yeah. You didn't do it right.
Yeah.
Just don't do it.
Sorry, that's like the prime example of like basically. I've never seen so many LGBTQ reviewers say that it's the worst LGBTQ movie produced that year.
That's funny.
Like I used to say when we were talking about movies and about LGBT representation, I was like, the best LGBT representation should be where the character is gay and it is not the main story plot. They just are. And it's normal. And no one has an issue about it. And it doesn't need to be called out. Then I know we have made it.
Right.
Right? But when it's you're just calling it out and it's like, he's gay, he's gay, he's gay, he's gay, the whole movie, it's like, then we're not really represented because it's not normal. Because you're needing to make the point again and again and again. So like,
Yeah, actually I felt like Discovery did that pretty well because yes, we had a gay couple, but they didn't, it wasn't like weird or anything like that. They didn't go, well, because you're a gay couple, we have to
right.
do this thing or that thing.
Mhm.
It just was one of them went back to the apartment and there was the other one and they talked to each other
Mhm.
like a heterosexual couple. And there
Right.
were still a whole bunch of people who were like, you're shoving this in my face. And I'm like, they're not. This
Right.
is like the most calm. I mean, like they're being even calmer than the heterosexual couple on there. Like the heterosexual couple is much more in your face.
Mhm.
And when you have somebody who's sensitive to that, like my kid is still sensitive to these things. He doesn't understand what all of those things mean.
Right.
So the more intimate the scene, the more he kind of gets like, I'm going to leave now. I'm uncomfortable. And I can tell the volume of that because none of the scenes that were between Culber and Stamets bothered him. It was all the scenes between Burnham and Book that bothered him because they felt like they could go further
right
with those scenes. So over here, they're all like, "Can we get off this?" Yeah, you can come join us there.
Yeah. Tangent.
Somebody just saying.
We can get off of it.
York. So, I am trying to concatenate something.
This is where I'm at.
Oh, hey. I need to talk to you about how to do those, like the trunk of the tree you did there. I can't seem to get cuts that look that cool. I either end up with
what exactly are you meaning? Like the shape of it, or just
no. The shape I've got, but when I do it, it all comes out kind of washed out and not as sharp as that. So I don't know. I got to figure something out.
Well, what are you currently doing when you try to do plants?
Well, I mean, I use a wedge brush. You are such a weird cat. I use a wedge brush, and I try to load it up with actual paint instead of water and paint, and it still kind of blends it. Maybe I'm just not waiting for it to dry. Like you waited for it to dry. That might have been the problem.
Yeah. So if you're gonna have like a background color, or a background base to your painting, you want to make sure that it's completely 100% dry before laying any more layers down.
Yeah.
The other thing is the particular paint that I use is called Indian Red, and it is one of the newer colors from Kiritaki, Ganzai, that actually has a dispersion, like a separation and dispersion. So essentially, it has thank you guys. So what it will do is it has like one color, and then it has like brown that separates as it dries. So it has like this bark-like texture.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Then
I have to kill George.
It's all right.
No, stop.
Just let us know when you're done killing him. The other thing is for organic shapes, I always use, since most of the time I use round brushes, I found this one, which is like a long round brush, and it's been working out really good for like leaves and stuff.
Gotcha.
So this is the normal round,
right?
What did I knock over? Oh, why did you put my serial killer there?
Because he's there.
Okay, well, anyways, so if I show you, these are the same size round brushes. So the one that's longer is the one I use for organic shapes a lot better. And then the shorter one will give you basically those like more finer details. I know you're like all into the flat brush, but honestly,
I love my flat brush.
I know you're into your flat brush, but you need to start branching out. Because sometimes the round brushes, they go to a point, they just make lives so much easier. And since you do a lot of finer details on starships and stuff,
yeah,
The
No,
ones
I
that
have
I
a.
use
I
are
do use a thin, a really small brush for that.
yeah, but like, so this is a size 2 round brush right here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
this can give you like individual like square panel fill-ins if that's what you want. But it also can give you a fine point at the same time.
That's
So like you can go get to a size 0 point with this particular brush,
uh-huh.
but also at the same time you'd have to justify to Maya to pay $16 just for this one paintbrush.
Right.
So I understand if you can't. I think Maya would kill me if I told her that I was the one that convinced you to do it.
Right. She comes out there to kill you off.
Yeah.
Oh man, that
Be
would
like, you told my husband to do what? And he listened to you. And I'll be like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He's a grown man. He's a grown man. Maya, put the gun away. Put the gun away. As Bill chuckles because he knows that's true.
He knows it's true. I'm having like the world's worst problem with this here. So this is one of my entertaining. God, I swear to God. I hate it when programs are trying to be smart. It doesn't help me at all, and I just don't get it. So last night, I have been having a problem forever. I use Celestia to check to see if my star charts are correct, right?
Mm-hmm.
And every time I have done all the math, and then I make all my star charts and I make my star maps, and then I look in Celestia and I go to Bellatrix, and then I'm like, okay, I will go to the nearest star. So the nearest star is this star. And I'll type it in, and Celestia will go, yeah, that's 250 light years away. I'm like, that's not the nearest star. And I'll go look at my maps, and I'll go look at what Celestia says, and then I will double check it. And sure as the world, those two stars are 250 light years apart, but on my star maps, they're 1 light year apart. I did the math wrong. Okay. I'm really frustrated about this. This is really driving me crazy. I have been doing that. This is the reason why there's an ongoing joke on this show about Guy, you're not supposed to do star maps, because I have tried 27 different ways to get into this so that I can just get it, so that when I look in Celestia, which has all the data from the latest satellites, then it's the same as my star maps. Yeah, they do move, but they don't move that much. 250 light years in, say, 10 years is faster than the speed of light. So that star would be going way over, like warp 6 at that point in time. So I've been trying all these different ways. Well, somewhere along the line in about February, I discovered that Celestia has an absolute value for all of these stars. It already did all the trigonometry in Celestia. So it already knows the X, Y, and Z coordinates of every star. All I need is for Celestia to tell me that information, which there's a code for it. There's even a script. So I wrote the script, and it tells me the XYZ of Bellatrix in Celestia speak, which is okay. We can work with that. Okay, great. Now I need to do it for the other 135 stars that are in my story. I can write a script for each and every one of them, which is ridiculous because that'll take me months to write the script. Well, I guess I could just copy and paste, but still. And Celestia, for some reason, doesn't export data. It has no output data. So I've been sitting here just every angle I can come up with. And I'm just like, I keep, and it's like every angle to do this seems to be like nobody has ever tried to do these maps before this way. Right? Ask ChatGPT to write the script. Actually, that might not be a bad idea. It's in Lua, which is apparently a language.
You have to give the script to the app. Is it like an app or is it a website? What is this?
So Celestia, here, I'll show you. I will show you what I'm doing because, and Brent, just relax for a moment. Because Brent's
Well,
going to
you're
be like,
not supposed
no,
to be
not
doing
Star
storyboards,
Maps.
guy.
Well, I can't find my paints. So I don't know. I'm going to have to ask Mariah where they went, and she's not available to talk to me until lunchtime. All right. So here is the script that I have been working on forever and ever and a day, right? I'll make it the big size so that you can see. I don't know if you can read it even then. It doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
So all I have to do is it comes out as this .celx file. And if I double click it, it fires off Celestia and does the thing. Okay, so even if I close Celestia down, I double click it and it launches Celestia. So the script will launch Celestia. This is my program that I use to check my stars and everything like that, because it actually has the ability to, you have to navigate to it. Hang on real quick. So I'll navigate to Bellatrix at a distance of 100,000 AUs so that it won't, otherwise you end up stuck face down in Bellatrix, right? And from here you can see, I can orbit around it. You can see all the stars that are close. Betelgeuse is here, Rigel's there. Like you can see these stars that are close, and it's marked them. And because of my code, I have the X, the Y, and the Z data printed out here in the mark. And to check it, I've got the galactic center marked and Earth. So I've marked both Earth here and the galactic center. We have two problems that are going on right now. One, from the point of Bellatrix, Earth is not 1.4 trillion light years away. No matter which way you look at it, it's not 1.4 trillion light years. So there's something wrong with whatever is the XYZ coordinates. And I think it has something to do with Celestia's frame of reference. And I think what it's really doing is 1.4 trillion kilometers or something like that, which would be a reasonable thought. And I just don't have the translation going to light years correctly. Either way, I'm looking for it to just say X 27, Y 31.5, Z 20, whatever's the number, just to give me an XYZ coordinate that's not with an exponent with 11, to the minus 11th power, not just to the 11th power.
Mm-hmm.
So that's fine. It already knows where these stars are. And the thing is this, I have a much more interesting and correct version, which is this one, which shows all of the stars in the story here. And they're marked with their correct names. So the story's names. So, for instance, here's Moment, right? This is the story that my entire first story takes place in, right? It's already marked. The star is marked. And I want to be able to do this as my star map, just like this, right? Or maybe, a little closer, certainly, but just this, where it has the star and a post to the ground, where it's got a grid on the ground that allows you to see how far apart they are from one another and give a 3D sort of understanding. It's called the pizza box function, right? So I already know where all the stars are now. I've figured out how to mark the stars. So these are all legitimately the stars that belong to my story. They're actual stars in the system. There's there's behind the wall, there's Betelgeuse. And over here, this is the bad guys right here, right? And then over on this side, we've got the Pleiades group. This is all the stars in the Pleiades. And then above and over here, whoa, too far. We've got the Beehive, which I think is up. And that's why. There it is. This is the Beehive. So these are all of the people, all of the different groups in my star system. I already have them like this. It knows where all these stars are. I just can't get it correct in a document. And it seems like every time I try to do something, it's something weird. It's something really strange. And it's like for example, now the problem is when I'm trying to get a concatenate to make the code so that all I have to do is copy and paste all the code for all 100 and something stars. So
Mhm.
I'll put the XYZs on all of these. But of course, you can't put quote, quote, quote. So I can't concatenate quote, quote, quote. And whenever I put and character 34, it thinks that this open parenthesis belongs to the and character 34 and has no closed parenthesis. So it's completely flipping out about that. And I'm like, oh, come on. So I can't get it to write what the function, which was the whole point here. And it's so frustrating. It's like, you're so dumb sometimes. Right? So anyway, that's what I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe it's always something dumb that means that I'm going to have to do enter and click this 100 times. The reason I don't want to do that is because I'm an ADDer, and the problem I have with attention deficit is I don't do good on the repetitive tasks. So if you need me to click in the middle of this document and put in a quotes and hit enter 100 times, somewhere in the middle in there, I will have hit enter and carriage returned half of the code and then put quotes at the beginning of it, which then Excel will explode on and blow up and wreck the whole thing. So anyway, that's where I'm frustrated. It's like every time it's something. I just need this to be easy. I'm willing to spend forever coding to make it automatically do the 100 things manually, because I will screw them up if I try to do them manually because of ADD.
How do you spell Celestia in that thing?
Do what?
How do you spell the name of that app? Where do you get that?
CELESTIA. It's Lua. The code is LUA.
Yeah.
It's written in Lua. But here's the thing. All of its resources are on a forum that's in Russia. And because of the war, they just took the entire forum down. And because of the war, they cannot bring the forum back up for 30 days to prove that they're not making some website to trash American interests or whatever. So this is just like a bunch of Russian astronomers who are like, we're just astronomers, guys. It's like we have zero interest in any of your war crap. It's not important to us. We'd rather look at stars. And I feel really bad for them because it's all like they're getting punished for being just Russian. It's like I've checked the Wayback Machine, and a lot of the posts don't exist on the Wayback Machine. So somehow the Wayback Machine didn't crawl the posts. So I'll run a search for some of this stuff, and there will be a link, and I'll click the link, and it says 404 not found, and then I'll put it into the Wayback Machine, and the Wayback Machine will go, looks like we didn't crawl that website on that day. And I'm like, yeah, so all the important things. And there is an active Discord server, but I keep telling them what I want, and they keep telling me things in right ascension and declination. And that's not what I need. That's what got me here in the first place. I clearly cannot do the trigonometry correctly.
Hmm.
Oh no, the site's actually gone. It's actually on the Discord server. It's not a US problem. It's they've been the Russian guys who had the server have to wait 30 days to bring up the new Russian server.
Oh.
So there's a 30-day wait for them to bring up the new server. So that's the problem. It's sitting on some guy's local hard drive right now. The whole forum is on his hard drive somewhere in Moscow, waiting for this new server to come up online. And there's just nothing he can do. He has to wait for the new server to be okayed. Which I guess makes sense. I mean, that's the thing that has been fascinating about this particular thing is it's putting a lot of gradient on Russia for me. Like, our media sort of portrays Russia in a sort of a black and white term.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm dealing with a whole bunch of, just Russian dudes who really just want to get back to astronomy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they've got no interest. They don't care about Ukraine. They don't care about the war. They don't think that Americans are bad guys. They just want to get back to working on the star stuff that they were working on before. Celestia is accurate to the newest data. And every time, so it's a visualization program for star data.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, the way we do stars traditionally has been what is its degree up from the equator and how many degrees, I believe it's left from Greenwich Mean Time. And then how far is it? Those are the three elements. Once you have them, you can make XYZ coordinates, but you have to do two transformations. One, you have to adjust for the fact that our solar system is at an angle.
Mm-hmm.
Two, you have to adjust that the Earth is at an angle. So you have to adjust for that degree and then level out the solar system because our solar system is like 33 degrees off the galactic plane.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why it makes sense if you look at the Milky Way, it goes up like this at an angle.
Right.
So it's not flat on our equator. So obviously our solar system is tilted. So we're all just people. Yeah, we are. We're totally people. I just think it's even I have biases. And I think that that's the thing that I found fascinating about this. After a little while, I realized, oh yeah, these are just astronomers. They're doing the same thing all of us are.
Mm-hmm.
For one reason or another, we're just trying to get the stars figured out here. That's all. So anyway, that's the problem. And then of course, whatever I've got the math for changing change. And of course, doing it in Excel means you have to change it to radians. So there's a lot of like places where I could have made a mistake in my math, which explains because it's not the straightforward, just, cosine pi squared thing that, is pretty straightforward trigonometry math. It's not just that. If you're doing it in Excel, which I am, because there's 100 of these, if you're doing it in Excel, you have to then do all the math after you've adjusted for the angle of the Earth and the angle of the solar system. And once you've done both of those, then you have to convert it to radians because Excel only speaks radians. Then you have to, once you've done that, then you can do the transform to XYZ, which is why I think I'm getting nowhere on this. Anyway, doesn't matter. Trying to get the data out of here. And the thing that really sucks is somebody wrote a script, and I found it this morning, or I found it just before I went to bed last night, that just takes the star database out of Celestia and makes it into a CSV. And it's a Python script.
Mm-hmm.
So this morning I got up and I said, how do I do Python? Oh, Python's an app. I could just download the app. No problem. So I clicked it. Nothing happened. So I went to my command line and I typed it in the command line, and
Mhm.
it literally in the DOS window for 3 billion stars.
Yeah.
It took it 15 minutes
Mhm.
to print each one of those line by line. Well, that's beyond the buffer, so I could only get I could copy and paste the last 500.
If you want to send that to me, I can get it into a file for you.
All right, so here's the latest stage.
Yay! You know what? That would be
I can
awesome.
write Python.
It's going to be a huge one. Here's what we'll do. I will give. I've got a share with everyone file here,
Mhm.
which I don't even know why I don't have a share with Bill. I'm sure I have I should have it. Well, new folder, share with Bill. There. And then I will just move these guys over to it. So let's go to, because this is just driving me crazy. And you know what? If you could just give it to me in CSV,
Yeah.
I could totally, then I could just load it into Access, match it with
Mhm.
my existing Starbase, and then just do it. It already knows all. I mean, that'd just be fine. So, okay, here.
You need my email address or anything?
I'm sorry?
You need my email address or anything to share with me?
I will in a minute.
Okay.
But there's nothing to share yet. So we need in the data this Python script. And then it's the stars.dat. And it's the star names.dat. Because they're DAT files, so they're in binary, so you can't read them. I don't think you need any other DAT files. Maybe. I don't think so. Because I think it just, because here's the code's not very long. This is it. So I'm guessing that's it.
That's wondering.
Okay.
Yeah, that's yes.
Hey, Bill,
Mhm.
down in the private chat window.
I just sent it to you on Facebook.
Oh, that works too.
Just don't share that. Not that I don't like anyone in the chat. I just don't want
Oh, no. There's a private chat. That's why. That only is, whoever's in the
Yeah,
show.
but the private chat guy, the private chat only lasts until the show is over, and then I think he wants it more permanent for you.
You sure you sent it to me?
Pepper sent it to you from Pepper's account.
Yeah, he sent it to your art page, GS Davis, not Guy Davis.
Oh,
that's why. That's fine. Okie dokie.
I can send it to your to Guy Davis.
Yeah, that's fine. I just need to get over here and do the messages thing.
Okay, send it both.
I got it. All right, share with Bill. OneDrive. Share. Warm. This will also be a live link, so it'll stay active.
Okay.
So you can use it forever and ever if you want, and just send me things and say, I put it in your folder. I'll be like, oh, I'm going to find it. So yeah, I actually made an Excel spreadsheet which has all of my stars here. Like these are all the stars that belong to the different groups, and then has all of their names over here. So that should match.
I'll see if I can get to it after the show.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just trying to get back to me now.
There's only, 9 minutes left in the show?
7, 6 now.
6. Yeah, 6.
Yep, you totally have access to the drive. So anyway, yeah, if you could just make that into a CSV that I could just import then into Excel, or I think if you make it an Excel spreadsheet, there's something like a couple of billion stars in there. So you probably will end up with a huge, massive, overbearingly massive Excel document. So I'm actually going to backload it straight into Access.
You'll want it CSV. Excel has a row limit, so when you go to paste it, it'll just cut everything off past the row limit.
Yeah, that's why I was saying, as much as I love the idea of it being in an Excel document, A, that'd probably be huge. Right. B, Excel would probably puke it out at some point in time. So,
but if you want the script to do anything else with the data, I can do that too.
No, it should just give me Celestia's X, Y, and Z coordinates, which are in millionths of a light year. Mm-hmm. So in theory, all I need to do is take that number and multiply it by 1,000,000, and I'll get in light years. Mm-hmm. So that's in theory what I should get. And if so, then I can make a list in Access, because Access will take it all. Mm-hmm. I can make a list in Access that matches this list right here that I just made, which is the stars that are in my story. And then it should be able to link the two together by catalog name and then give me the X, Y, and Z. And I can do things like truncate it, because right now it's doing, 27.2743299862 exponent 15. And I'm like, I really don't need that. I can round it to 2 at decimal places, and that's fine. My maps don't need to be that accurate.
I could probably output it that way. I could probably output it that way.
Maybe. If you wanted to output it, the problem is I'm still not 100% sure. The documentation says that Celestia tracks everything in millionths of a light year. Mm-hmm. But still, every time I bring up Celestia, like we're doing here, when I bring it up and I check, for example, going to the galactic center from Bellatrix, the numbers that it's putting up there don't make sense. Mm-hmm. They don't match. And that's part of the problem. So I'm worried that just multiplying it by 1,000,000 won't do the job.
Okay.
Yes, some user, that's actually, the planets and everything are real locations. They really exist in the real world. So that's one of the reasons why I kind of wanted to do this, is because if nothing else, people who aren't interested in my comic might be interested in my star maps, because this is, as far as we know, really what these stars look like right in this zone. Right? Well, thank you. And that's like, this is what we sort of think this zone looks like, or at least from Gaia, which is the probe that we've sent. So we've got a probe up right now, some user, that is orbiting the Earth. And what it does is, when it's on one side, it actually orbits the sun. It's what we call a heliocentric orbit. So it's orbiting the sun. So when it's on one side of the sun, it takes a picture of a bunch of stars. And then when it goes to the other side, it takes another picture of those same stars. And when it does, then it matches the pictures together. And it uses a technique called parallax, whereby, as you know, when you move things like this, going back and forth, the closer thing moves faster than the farther thing. So you can check that, and using trigonometry, determine what the distance is from you to this object or you to this object and how far they are together. And so Gaia is, we had a satellite that we put up called Hipparchos, and Hipparchos did that in the 90s. And Gaia is doing it in much higher resolution, because before, when you had Hipparchos, it was which pixel to which pixel. And when you have a low resolution camera, at least to our attention or our thought, a low resolution camera, that makes a big difference. With Hipparchos, the distance was enough that the errors between the distances of these stars became something in the order of 100 light years. When Gaia went out there, it had much, much higher resolution cameras, so it's getting much more detailed pictures of the stars and how close they are. So the data from Gaia is much more detailed. But Gaia has a number of other things, so it's taking that it took whenever it did all of these. So it's taking forever to download the data. So they did it in 3 batches, and it's probably going to actually be 4 batches because it's billions of stars, right? They've got Gaia has now mapped all of the stars within 100 light years of us, and 90% within 200 light years and like 80% within 300 light years. You get the idea. So it's going further and further back, because the farther the star is, the dimmer it is. So the more Gaia has to spend time opening the shutter and leaving the shutter open for a certain amount of time to resolve the stars.
The fun thing is, the further away in distance is also the further away in time. Mm-hmm. So the further away you've mapped it, the less the less the accuracy is that it's even still there. Right?
Yeah. Well, that's the infamous Betelgeuse thing. That's a story part in us. It's what we call the Betelgeuse light line in the story. But you see how I've got that circle around mm-hmm. Betelgeuse? That circle is not quite right, but it will be at some point here, indicating the line of which, when you pass that line, Betelgeuse explodes. When you turn around and go the other direction, Betelgeuse reforms into a star. Because the light information of the explosion is only moving at light speed.
Right.
And all of my ships move faster than light. So all of my ships will be traveling along, and as they travel along, you'll look out the window and there's Betelgeuse, then it goes boom and explodes, zoop, back to a star, because you just crossed the light line like that. You cut the top of the light line. Mm-hmm. So as you watch Betelgeuse out the window, it's going to explode and go back. And so, because you'll cross that light line. The thing that's also interesting about that is that there will be degradation of the data as time goes on, because of the weirdness of having faster than light spacecraft. Because every time a ship passes that light line, the light will splatter itself all over the side of the ship, therefore making a very tiny shadow that will start moving with that light line out further and further. So at some point, some planet somewhere will see Bellatrix explode, but it'll look like there's like all these dots in front of it, all these like holes in the explosion from all the ships that cross the light line back and forth, because they took the light information away. They eclipsed the light information.
Could you imagine if they had the technology to focus a camera at a planet millions of light years away, and you could watch the civilization grow over time, and then you're on your ship, and as you approach the speed of light, the events happening on the planet keep getting faster and faster and faster, and you're like, what's going on? Like, is time different for that? Like, no, you're just fast forwarding through all the events that have already happened.
Yep. I wrote a story called Lalanne's Planet, and it was a short story I wrote once, because I've been writing forever and not publishing anything, because all about the onboard AI, as the ship accelerated towards the speed of light, the onboard AI had to slow down to talk to the people.
Uh-oh.
Couldn't communicate properly anymore. Yeah, I'm getting all choppy, aren't I?
Mm-hmm.
I'll return. Right? I appreciate that. That's cool. But I mean, like, that was the whole thing, was as the AI or as the ship moved, the people started
Oh, we're losing you.
right now because of streaming problems. But anyway, that was a thing. They slowed down. And so at some point only the AI could communicate anymore back to Earth, because the AI was the only one that could adjust the thinking communication speed
Mm-hmm.
to match the speed of where everybody was going on Earth as they sent transmissions back and forth through that. At that time, they had entangled twisted pair communication.
Mm-hmm.
So they were using entangled pair, which meant that you got a real-time communication from both sides.
Right.
And the entangled pair, being quantum physics, wasn't affected by relativity. So that was it was a fun story. And then, of course, in the story, I had to add some stress. So, a war breaks out on Earth, and the AI has to then decide, is it going to tell the crew? Because by the time it tells the crew, the war will be over.
Right.
Whatever's done's done, so the crew won't really have time to process and freak out.
As the AI just goes into the bar, is like, oh, how are things going on Earth? Oh yeah, the Galactic Union doesn't exist anymore. Just
fine.
giving you that heads up.
You might want to repurpose that story and make it into a Bellatrix Rising story, because that is a fascinating thing to think about.
Mm-hmm. I think they kind of played with that in Stargate Universe, wasn't it? Where there was a ship that was going the speed of light in between the two galaxies.
Oh yeah.
And because of that, they had no idea that their entire race had evolved and moved on.
That was Atlantis that they did that, not
okay.
Universe.
Oh, okay, one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the kind of stuff that, that's the stuff I want to write about.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, the cool part about doing everything the way I did it, with these star maps being accurate and everything like that, is it really helped stretch my brain to make realistic stuff happen. Like, I now know legitimately, once these stars are all plotted out and everything is together, I will know how long it takes to go from Bellatrix to, say, Moment, for that matter, the star that is in the story. I know exactly how long it takes now, because all I have to do is draw a line from Bellatrix to Moment and measure that line. So I can definitely find out exactly to the light year,
Mm-hmm.
And so, this means that there's no, in my story, there's no warp 6 is 300 times the speed of light in this episode, and 700 times the speed of light in that episode, and 4 times the speed of light in this episode.
You probably have to make a what's the word? You will have to declare in your story that while all of the events are happening in this year, space is in the perspective of this year.
Right.
Because all of the stars will be in completely different positions in probably the year in which you're writing about.
I actually set it forward in the Julian date for that very reason.
Cool.
Which is part of the reason why things are probably weird and funky.
Mm-hmm.
Is because you have to declare what date it is. So I went on ahead and just found January 1st of 2531, which is the actual year that we're in Bellatrix Rising.
Mm-hmm.
And then Celestia adjusted everything and moved them all over.
Cool.
But by moving them all over, it's not dramatic. The
Mhm.
difference was not actually very observable.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing that was easy to observe, the easiest thing to observe was the Pleiades move, because the Pleiades are moving in a different direction and they're moving away from all of these guys.
Mm.
Not at a very fast speed, but you know.
Right.
Once you get faster than light travel, though, things moving are kind of like trees growing. You know what I mean? It'd be like telling a story and you know, making sure that you have the accurate height of the trees in the front yard. You know, it's like, well, yeah, I mean, if your story takes place over, say, 20 years, the tree will grow
Mm-hmm.
significantly. But if your story only takes place in 1 year, the tree is really not going to grow a lot. Not enough that you need to be, you know, meticulously measuring how tall your trees are out front. You know, that's not a something. So it's the same kind of thing with lights, faster than light speed travel. It's really not, you know, not a big problem
Mm-hmm.
for the stars moving, because even in 500 years, the stars don't move a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all right. It's good enough that I looked between the two and I'm like, you know what? I'll just take whatever XYZ coordinates come out of this thing and just accept it, because I think it's based on 2000.
Okay.
So, because I think that's J2000 is the last time. So the positions are all in J2000 information,
Mm-hmm.
which is not true because some of this stuff is Gaia data, and the Gaia data is 2022 or 2021. So
Is that Python script have the year put in it so you get the correct positions?
I think so. Good check.
Okay.
I think it doesn't even have that though. I feel like it just let's see here.
Because it might just give you the raw data, which is the 2000.
That's what I was thinking.
So you'll need to account for stellar drift.
Yeah. See, like right here, this whole section of it. Oh, wait. See right here, this whole section, this whole section is translating it from XYZ into radians and degrees and declination and distance. So I don't even need this piece of the code. So when you go through it, you can just eject that whole thing. I don't care. I don't need it back in radians. I can get that. That's easy. So it's spitting it back out in astronomer speak, like asteroids. So I can tell you how that works. So says me, I'll show you. Because I can. This is a Galaxy class starship. It's a dusty Galaxy class starship. So what this thing is right here is the forward deflector array. This is the sensor. This thing has a protective shield it generates right here that deflects things around the spacecraft at speed. That's what this thing does, the forward deflector. So that's this part here that always glows blue or red. That's what it does. So yeah, that's the in-universe explanation of how starships don't end up getting crushed utterly. Now, when you talk about Bellatrix Rising, my ships generate a gravity field around the ship, so things are encouraged to move around it in much the same way like you would imagine a magnet. When you take two magnets of the same poles and try to put them together, they force themselves around each other. It's the same kind of thing with a gravity field. So my ships generate a gravity field around them, which they call the moat, and it's a gravity well around it, like a moat in around a castle.
It would be more of an anti-gravity mode, right?
No, it's a heavy gravity moat. So so in other words, the gravity is heavy right here, and then light right here. So an object is attracted to this side. So if it's coming straight for the ship, it'll be attracted to the side and then brought around the spacecraft. So the problem is as you go faster in space in Bellatrix, the Schwarzschild radiuses of objects artificially increase. A Schwarzschild radius is the radius of a body whereby the mass is so heavy that light cannot escape. It's what we would call the event horizon of a black hole. Every object has one. Stars have one too. It's just they're 3 kilometers wide and they're right in the center. So like our star has a Schwarzschild radius. It's the inner 3 kilometers of the star. So you never see it. When you start accelerating, there's a relativity that occurs where that Schwarzschild radius artificially gets bigger than the star. And when that happens, if your ship happens to touch it, you are sucked into a black hole instantly. So you need to have a pilot who is getting you navigating around Schwarzschild radiuses of stars. Big objects are like that. But even a hydrogen atom will have a Schwarzschild radius at some speed in space. So I've designed a world whereby you require a person to fly the ship in warp speed, as opposed to just setting your PC and going, boop, okay, we're going, we'll be back.
That's why I still think you would need an anti-gravity, because if you had strong gravity at any point of the ship, say you created little black holes at various points around your ship. Well, as black holes do, they bring things in towards them. If you were heading straight at a black hole, you wouldn't just divert to one side. You would just go right in.
Depends on how powerful your black hole is.
Right. But in any gravity
That's what
well.
he
So that
said.
like when they describe gravity, like, and they always show like you have a rubber mesh and you put a ball in it and it deflects down.
Yeah.
And that's the intensity of gravity as
right?
you
That's
approach.
called a gravity well.
Right. So anti-gravity would be the opposite of that. You would stretch the rubber up like so. So as things approach it, they would veer away because they're being pushed away. So I feel like you would need a field around your ship that's anti-gravity. So as things approach, the closer they get, the more intense that field gets, and that would deflect them away.
So I'm going to use another term. What I'm doing is causing an artificial Oberth maneuver. There was a scientist called Oberth in the 1800s who was the first person to effectively understand the slingshot effect, right? You fall towards a body, but you gather so much momentum that when you come out the other side, you have escape velocity. And so the moats that surround my ship effectively are designed to take everything from a certain size down and give them Oberth velocity. And so in other words, what I'm doing is artificially creating an Oberth maneuver where it just deflects. So what would happen if you were in space and the ship would come up to you, you'd be like sitting there in space, then all of a sudden you'd be moving and you don't know how you got to that point, but you're moving and you're moving at a significant rate somewhere else because effectively you just slingshot it around the ship. So it just needs to create a well that does that has a point where it artificially encourages the Oberth maneuver around the spacecraft. And so that allows us to effectively have this. And they use that, by the way, those moats are the shields as well. So when the ship raises its shields, I actually don't say raise the shields. She says drop the moats. And so the moat drops because it looks like, because the way you visualize it, because of course in 3D space you can't visualize this. It's a 4D creation. It's so weird. So you visualize it as if that, like the rubber plane that you were talking about, where you take the rubber plane, you put the ball in the middle and it drops down and makes a well.
Mhm.
In the case of the ship, it's creating a moat instead of a well.
Mhm.
So it drops a moat around the ship. Once you drop a moat, all things then instant. So if I fire a missile at your ship, the missile will come in and then oberth around your ship in the moat. And then I can do, if you've got enough power to devote to the moats, you could theoretically get to the point where even laser light would be bounced around it, obviously.
Mhm.
So we use microwave lasers because they're high speed. And because they're high speed, they're above. It makes it harder for the moats to drop. So really, technically, my poor little Corvette just doesn't have enough juice to drop a moat that stops masers.
Mhm.
She can drop a moat that'll turn missiles away and torpedoes, but not a maser blast, because she just doesn't have enough juice. But something big like a battleship could drop a moat that would deflect masers. The problem is it also deflects their masers. So as the battleship keys in on you, it has to drop the moat to fire and to launch its fighters and anything, because a fighter would get killed inside a moat. It'd be just wiped out. It'd be smeared. It'd be spaghettified. Especially if you're dropping a moat that has enough gravity well to stop a maser blast. A fighter hitting it would be just and be gone. So,
Isn't the Oberth effect, though, highly dependent on the angle of approach?
mm-hmm.
So, like, if you are heading towards the sun and you want a slingshot, if you don't have enough velocity, you'll get sucked in.
Right.
If you have too much velocity, your angle will be adjusted, but you'll keep going straight. So you need the right velocity and angle to slingshot.
Right.
But you can't control, as the ship, you are unable to control the velocity or the direction of the things that are approaching your ship. You can control your velocity, but the
Right.
things approaching it are going to be coming at all different velocities and directions. So how do you guarantee that they're always going to deflect in the same way?
So when we talk about the grid being deflected like this,
Mm-hmm.
right? Oop, that was lousy. Let's try that again, guy. And we talk about sort of the deflection points where the grid kind of goes down into this spot like this. We're thinking of this in a 2D space. But the truth is, it's a 3D network.
Right.
So
I
it
get
looks a
that.
little bit more like when you have grids that are like this, and then you have grids that are closer that are like this, and so it looks more like that with all of these lines connected together, and it's very hard to understand. But effectively, it takes that square cube and squeezes the inner piece.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter where your trajectory is, you will still oberth around stuff, or you won't. If you were to take a spacecraft, there's a spot around here that we now know is what we call the oberth line. And inside this line, if your ship crosses this line in any point right through here, let's just say, I'll make this a little clearer, right? If it crosses this line, it goes to the planet. If it's outside this line, then it can create an oberth maneuver where it just deflects around.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens with my ships is, we'll delete this layer and I'll create a new layer. With my ship, it doesn't just do that. The moat that it creates actually dips down like this and then comes back up in a circle like that. So it has this hole around it, which it's projecting because it's an artificial construct. So in this moat exists like this, going straight down. right? This is hard to draw. This is not as easy to draw as you think, which goes straight down like this in this interesting moat-esque sort of design where it goes like this. Ooh, this is hard to draw, right? And then in here, it's perfectly normal space. So my ship is fine sitting right here. Here's my spaceship with the little wings on it and stuff. Here we go. There's the wings. There's the tails, right? And voila, we have the kitty wake. Okay. So with this moat around the outside, things still have an oberth line like here on this outside. But if you cross the inside, instead of crashing into the planet, you're just crushed at the bottom of this moat where things get caught. And what usually happens is when a ship exits, you get a lot of electricity discharge, you get energy discharge from all the things that got caught in the moat. So that gives you, hang on real quick. I am heading to a thing. It's right here. And so the effect you get, man, I have too many stupid files here, is this. Where the ship trails all that data or all of those lost things out the back as the moat drops.
Hmm.
So she comes out of in space, and then the ship sheds all those electrons, all those hydrogen atoms. It's picked up all that crap and stuck it in the moat. And
I
so
see
as
what
soon
you're
as
saying
it
now.
comes out, it ejects the moat, and then all of that stuff, just electric charge, everything, just behind it.
I think a better description for me would be that you put a sphere of intense gravity around the ship.
Yeah.
Where the edge of the sphere is like the singularity.
Yes.
So as things hit
it's a
it, they
donut
basically.
singularity.
Huh?
It's a singularity donut.
Right. Well, a singularity sphere because it's 3 dimensions, right?
Right. But I mean, but the problem, of course, with sphere is when you say sphere singularity, it doesn't sound like it's hollow on the inside.
Right. It's
And it
yeah. Well,
is.
it's yeah. It lacks some English description, a way to
Finesse.
describe it
Yeah.
most effectively to the English or any language on the earth at the moment to describe a hollow sphere where it is it's a 2-dimensional layer on 3D space where you are
A
inside
bubble.
it.
That's good.
A
Yeah.
bubble.
A gravity bubble.
It's a
Thank
gravity
you.
bubble.
That's perfect. It's a gravity bubble.
Right. Where the
because
bubble itself is the singularity, but the thing inside the bubble is
absolutely fine. Right.
All right. Since it's Watercolor Wednesday, I'm still giving updates.
Nicely done. I like that. See, that tree is so pretty, though. I still feel like we need to sit down next to each other at a table sometime and hash
We
out.
were sat down next to each other at tabling.
Yeah, and hash out how all this works. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that's the logic behind in space. The 3 things that happen while you're in space is Schwarzschild radiuses are artificially or relativistically increased, so they become hazards at some point in time while you're flying around. So the faster you go, the bigger the Schwarzschild radius, and that becomes a bigger hazard as time goes on. And even planets will start to gain Schwarzschild radiuses. I mean, at some point, theoretically, hydrogen atoms will gain a Schwarzschild radius, you know. The other thing is the Heisenberg uncertainty principle starts to increase. So at some point, PCs start to fail. And then at some point further down the road, individual creatures' brains stop working.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, we have a couple of other things that we've seen. For example, when we're looking at like Momentary Ghosts 1, right? They go onto the bridge, and when they do, hang on real quick. That's weird. Where's
I
that?
think it'd be cool if you had another species that you ran into that just did it the complete opposite way, and they use an anti-gravity field,
Oh yeah.
which would be neat. Like, what happens if the anti-gravity field ship bumps into the shield of your intense gravity? Like, well, what happens?
Right. Where's the page? I'm like sitting here going, did we lose? Oh no, we didn't. There it is.
Ooh, that would be a cool storyline. Like, maybe you create like um, a small dimensional bubble when the two ships collide, because you had this intense anti-gravity, which would be the lines going up,
Mhm.
and the intense gravity of the lines going down. It actually creates a temporary dimensional bubble, like your own
Yeah, I mean, if you've
small
got
universe. It's
control over
classic,
where
kind of like
gravity
that episode
happens,
with Beverly.
right, exactly, then you've got ghosts. So here's a great example of this. The bridge, the bridge has a physical, like, massive switch that you go clack, and all the lights come on and power up because it's analog. It's super, super analog. Everything on the startup sequence is analog because it has to be, because the wires to transmit the information have to be able to handle up to where humans start to fail out, which means that the wires end up being like this big around to compensate for the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, because the electrons start vanishing outside of wires at some point in time, and so communication can't happen. And so I have that here. That's one of the things that occurs. And that's so that it's interesting that you bring that up, Breaking Bad. You bringing up that some users bringing up Breaking Bad, which of course Heisenberg, the reason he used that name was because he was uncertain as to what he was doing or how he was doing it. So that's an interesting thing. The other thing that I have here, which is part of the world building pieces that are in here, is looking at Mayrel. This is Mayrel's character. She has this 3.92 in her wings. That's her speed. That's her top speed. So at in space speed 3.92 was when her brain stopped functioning properly, and she had to let go of the little remote. So the ship will go faster and faster and faster, and she holds onto this remote. And when she lets go of the remote, then the ship stops and then marks that speed. And so each pilot knows how fast and in space they can go and what their rating is. And that's the rating when they lose cognitive thought, is 3.92. So in her wings, she can go up to 3.92, which is actually really fast. Most humans black out at about 3.5. So she does really good there. And poor Chang's like 2.9 or something. Every human is different. Everybody is slightly different. It's like a dead man's switch.
Mm-hmm.
So in her wings that she wears on her dress uniform right here, it actually says 3.92. So you can look right at her wings and go, oh, she's a hotshot pilot, is what that turns out to be, is she's super, super good at what she does. So
I can imagine they have to take a passenger on, and they've got like a 1.
right.
And
And they're out.
they hate going fast. Like, every time they get sick, they pass out, and it's just horrible every time. So they always take jobs where it's like they're not moving very fast.
Right.
Except for this one time they have to pick up this passenger. They're like, please don't.
Right. Well, and that's the problem, is that the Chakrana are pretty good, but the Najor aren't. So I've got crew members that they're the way that the ones that are like giant amoebas, they actually disassociate. Their goo starts to disassociate above like 1 or 1.5. So when you go into in space, They put all the AIs to sleep and they put all the Najor to sleep. And the only people who run the ship are the humans and the Shakrana and the Jassim. So there are only 3 races that can run the ship when they're in space. 2 races have to go to bed. And so that's where you'll also see that in all of this stuff is showing up in my comic, and it's all in there. When they come out of in space, then you start seeing my AI character. He starts showing up, and the doctor shows up because they're both. The doctor is Najor, and of course the AI character is an AI. So they can't. And there's a little bit of that's one of the things Navin always wanted to do, was always wanted to be a hot shot in space pilot, but he can't be because he completely disassociates at like 1.1. There's nothing you can do. So the only way he can be a hot shot pilot is if he could become human, so to speak. So he's sort of Data in the way in that instance, but not. He doesn't want to be a human being. He just wants to be as cool as Mayrel. So he has hero worship of her. He ends up with a little bit of hero worship because not only is she hotshot, but she's hotshot. She's sort of the maverick of test pilots. So yeah, all of this stuff is all in the world building stuff that I've been working on for 2 years. But it's all like logical, which is why this is so frustrating. I can't get the star maps to, it'd be so weird to just throw a whole bunch of dots on a piece of paper. And then, after all this work that I've gone through to make every other piece of my science like pretty watertight, it would be pretty silly to go, yeah, I just kind of tossed a whole bunch of coins on a piece of paper and circled them. And those are my stars. It's like, it just seems like that would be such a strange thing to do. So I appreciate it. Oh yeah, that's kind of cool. But 30 kilometers an hour? That's like creeping along. In Japan, they were called K-doshi or K-cars, which were small cars with little engines. They weren't limited to 30 kilometers an hour. I think they could do up to about 100 kilometers an hour. But I think at about 100, you were pushing it. At that point, I think that was about all those little K cars had in them. But they were they were small, so they took up less space. In Japan, they make you put the beginner's mark on your car, which is a specialized mark that looks like an arrow, but half of it's yellow and half of it's green. And that mark is on your car for the first year of your driving career, so that everybody knows that you're a beginner. And then when you pass the age of 60, I think it's 60, you have to put I don't know what they call it in English, but it was like the old man's mark or whatever. But it's a teardrop that's orange and red. And it's the same thing. You put that on your car to indicate that you're over the age 60 and driving.
That feels horrible.
Right? But if it's part of the culture, you kind of just accept it.
Well, at least not make it a teardrop.
I know. It just happens to be a
sad.
teardrop shape, but yeah.
Right. Like maybe teardrops don't mean the same thing over there, but here it just means sad.
It's sad. You're old. Yeah. Well, it's 11:37. Bill, I've enjoyed talking to you as usual. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I will close all of it. Do not save these pages. I hope that was... Oh, Epitractor? Oh. There has been an ongoing war here in America as to whether we should allow kids under 18 to drive at all. And now it has become so much a part of the culture to drive that it's outrageous to even think about letting people under 18 not, or forcing them not to drive.
Mhm.
That's interesting. With governors, they probably have a governor of some sort that keeps them at 30 miles or 30 kilometers an hour. But yeah, it'd be so unheard of. It's so weird. There's already, like, there's a bill on the table here in Colorado for everybody under 21. Right? How
I
would they
can
call those only for kid minimum wage jobs?
I can imagine a sad future where you have to get like a pilot license to drive. Otherwise, you have to use all automated vehicles. Like driving won't be a requirement, but if you want to, you have to get a pilot's license for manual control.
Yeah. That makes sense. Have you been there this whole time, Kat? Just hanging? While I wandered aimlessly through ridiculous amounts of backstory. Kat's like, what is he doing? He's not writing a comic. He's writing a science thesis. Oh, well. Oh, yeah. I guess then a whole bunch of weird chatter is not so bad. So, okie dokie. Well, I'm going to get going, though, because I'm hungry and dinner or lunch is downstairs somewhere. I just have to go find it. I have to hunt it down.
Well, if you find Maya, it's probably with her.
Yeah, she'll be calling in a little bit. Oh, I should probably. Speaking of, I spent this entire time with my phone sitting over there on the big screen. That's kind of funny because I don't really need it. Although it didn't burn through as much of my my power as I thought it would.
I think since they switched to OLEDs, not saying yours is necessarily an OLED, but a lot of phone manufacturers now use OLEDs.
Yeah.
So it sips power now.
I think you're right. You're welcome, some user. Thank you for joining me. And it's always fascinating to hear. I mean, like, obviously, I love the fact that you added all those things about driving. That's something that really intrigues me, is like, how is driving handled in other countries? It fascinated me when I was in Japan. It fascinates me everywhere because you and I, we don't think as much about it because we're here in America. We're in Colorado. We know all about Colorado's ins and outs, but we don't think about it. And so it's like, then I start thinking about other things like a teardrop. What's so funny is everything was so new in Japan when I got there. And I'd say, what's that for? Oh, that's this. What's that for? Oh, that's this. I didn't think about it until like now-ish when you said it. And I was like, oh yeah, it is kind of sad, isn't it? It kind of looks like a blood drop or something, like half orange, half red blood drop, what are they implying here? It's kind of wild. But yeah, I didn't actually think about it. So, all right. It was good talking to you, Bill.
Good talking to you too.
And thank you, by the way, for doing the Star Database transfer.
You got it.
I really appreciate that. This is driving me absolutely crazy. So, yes, toilets have a special button to play the flushing sound. It actually became way too much fun for us many times going in there and pressing all the different buttons that are on toilets in Japan. So, yes.
You do you.
That's actually, I didn't know about that until I had an exchange student stay with us. And she kept flushing the toilet all the time. And my mom said, hey, you might want to tell her how to use the toilet because I'm not sure she knows. And we didn't know that was what she was doing because, of course, Colorado's at a different altitude. So you get up here and you get gassy for the first day or so that you get back here from sea level. We're all gassy. It's just the way it goes. And she was embarrassed. That was pretty funny. So I now looking back on that, I went in there and told her how to use the toilet, and now I feel really stupid. You know what I mean? Like you didn't. Now it's actually kind of embarrassing to think back on that memory because I'm like,
Yeah.
she must have just thought, now I can't. There's no way out of this. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like she must have been like, I'm trapped. You know.
Mhm.
So it was. I don't know. I feel bad. So anyway, okay, guys. Well, I'm out of here, and I will talk to you all tonight. And as always, keep your eyes on the stars. Bye bye.